Bob, I thought we could spend some time today talking about Grover. And we've got the Hargrove suite at the ballpark. You spent a lot of times with Mike, player who goes down in history, one of the most popular players at first base with us, transitioned to the manager position and did a great job of that 90s team, and maybe doesn't get his just due managing that team of those teams of the 90s, I should say. But Bobby, I know you're close with Mike Hargrove. Talk about him and the importance to the franchise.
First met Mike in, I think it was June. I think the trading deadline was in June back then, June of 1979. If not June, it was July. So, or I might only be off a month, but it was 1979. He came over from the San Diego Padres in a trade. We traded Paul Dade to the San Diego Padres for Mike Hargrove. Um, Grover was the 1974 American League Rookie of the Year with the Texas Rangers and was playing very well. And all of a sudden, he gets traded to San Diego, and it just didn't work. He just, I think he was hitting 100 or 200 or something in his time in San Diego, and just asked to be traded back to the American League. And next thing you know, he's in Cleveland, and he's a 300 hitter over his first 3 seasons with us. Played 9 seasons, seven seasons with us as a player. It was 8.5, almost 9 as a manager with us. But just one of the truest professionals that you would ever want to be around. I mean, he and Sharon are just remarkable off the field. Made his impact on this organization wearing a Cleveland uniform for close to 22 years. That's among the most. Mel Harder's the most at 36 consecutive years wearing a uniform. Sandy Alomar's now up over 25, 26 years. So Grover at 21 is among the top of people wearing a Cleveland uniform as a player, a coach, a manager. He spent time in our farm system as a manager. Just an absolutely wonderful human being.
Well, let's go to the 90s teams, right, Bobby? There's a lot of personality on those teams, between 94 and 98, 99. And then some of them come and some of them went, but there was always unique teams that were powerful teams. And it was Grover that kind of tied all that together. And I opened up by saying sometimes he might not get his due of handling all of that. And I thought maybe you can expand. You were right there watching all of that.
Yeah, I was right there on the inside of that one. That period of time, of course, 720 wins, third most in franchise history behind Tito and Lou Boudreau, 5 consecutive American League Central Division titles, 2 American League championships. You opened the comment about um, Grover by saying there were a lot of personalities on that team. And you're so very right. And I think that is one of the reasons, not only personalities, but incredible talent, all stars all over the place. And there was this unfortunate line of thinking that anybody could have managed that team to a winning, sustained winning culture. And I just knowing, having been there, that that's not true. Grover was the perfect leader, perfect personality to lead that collection of personalities, to keep them focused. I mean, they all had a drive to want to beat the living daylights out of people. That was the one thing. And Grover, being that hard-nosed Texan that he is, I think that helped create that attitude that we don't take days off when, especially when people come into Progressive Field at back then Jacobs Field, of course. When people come into our ballpark, we're going to beat the daylights out of them. And honestly, teams and pitchers did not like coming to our ballpark. They did not want to face in front of a sold out crowd night after night after night. And back then it was 43,000 seats that were sold out every night. And our guys just wanted to dominate. And I think Grover had a lot to do with that attitude. And I think he had a lot to do with making sure that everybody stayed in line because, yeah, there was a collection of personalities on those teams in the 90s.
Well, and he had veteran leadership, right? When you're talking about Eddie Murray and some of those guys, but he also had the young guys, you had Manny, Jim Thome, a lot of these guys were young too. So he must have had that unique ability to not only lead the veterans and give them an answer guy, but also able to bring on the young guys. And that doesn't happen with every manager. That's unique.
It is, and I applaud him. He went back to I think it was Jamestown or Waterloo or one of our Class A teams, off the top of my head, to manage after a nice big league career, a long big league career, and um, the fact that he was willing to do that instead of just like I have to go to AAA, but he was willing to start at the bottom and work with minor league kids and revisit that. Again, he's one of those great stories like Stephen Vogt. Um, Grover was a late 300. He was one of lowest draft picks of the Texas Rangers because he wasn't sure if he was going to actually go play football. He went to college and he was a basketball player, a football player, a baseball player, and all of a sudden baseball started to become his sport. And for him to go to back to Class A and manage and work his way up, that obviously gives you a real sense of the young player and the struggles a young player will go through. Um, but the his ability also to deal with an Eddie Murray and those guys, just from being a big league player for as long as he was, and just Grover truly wanted to help the players be the best they could be. It wasn't all about him. He knew we had so many stars that the spotlight should be shined on the players and not him.
He's certainly one of the greats, I think, in Cleveland baseball history. Bobby mentioned over 20 years wearing the uniform. It's terrific. Senior VP with us, Bob DiBiasio. It's Hey Bobby. So Bobby, one final thing, and we can tie this with Grover because he was playing with the Texas Rangers. It was this week, 50 years ago, that the beer night happened at Municipal Stadium in Cleveland, and it was ended up not being a good night for many reasons, a forfeit and everything. But I know you've talked to Grover about that, and he actually got a little bit scared and such. But I thought maybe you could share a couple of the stories, whether you have them personally or what Grover has told you about that night at Municipal Stadium in 1974.
Yeah, my friends at Fox 8 are doing a tonight, I think, um, 50th anniversary half-hour special, and talked to Grover and a number of other people. And I've talked to Grover about it in the Hargrove suite. There's a number of photos of Grover in the Texas Ranger uniform. And he just shakes his head whenever he thinks about it because the images that pop into his head are streakers, um, people running the scary part of it when people ran on the field and tried to grab Jeff Burrows, who was playing right field, their hat. And when he heard the commotion, he turned around. All of a sudden, he sees people on the field and they're attacking one of his teammates. He thinks they're attacking him. Um, in the special, they tracked down the guy who actually was grabbing the hat. And he said, I was just grabbing the hat. I wasn't going to hurt. I had no intention of hurting anybody, but it certainly looked like that when you reach up to try to grab somebody's ball cap. And so that's when things got out of control and the fisticuffs. And um, he tells, the story of Fergie Jenkins, which is in that show as well. Fergie was the starting pitcher that day. This all was precipitated by Milt Wilcox throwing high and in, giving a little chin music to Lenny Randle and him not liking it. So Lenny
Oh,
Randle laid down a bunt down the first baseline, and instead of running to first base, he ran over like a strong safety and just cold cocked Milt Wilcox. Just ran him over like he was a running back, and Randall was a strong safety, and then obviously all hell broke loose, and that was just a week prior in Texas. And so that precipitated some bad blood and Pete Franklin on the air, making it, and Billy Martin saying we're not worried about any um, retaliation because they don't have any fans in Cleveland. So, those kind of things. So it just bubbled onto what transpired. But Fergie Jenkins got hit by a ball, and he needed attention at the hospital. I think there were lacerations on his leg or something that they couldn't take care of in some scenario where they couldn't take care of it in the clubhouse. So he's at the hospital. And as he tells the story, as he's sitting on a gurney in the hallway at the hospital, all these people start walking in all bloodied. And a couple of them are like, "Hey, aren't you Fergie Jenkins? You pitched tonight." And he goes, "Well, who are you?" And he goes, "We were just at the ballpark. It's just crazy down there." It's like, oh my goodness. A lot of people ask me if you know, what were we thinking when we did that promotion, as if I was working there. I was a sophomore in college at that time, so I wasn't working. I think I finished my freshman year at college at Ohio. I wasn't working there, but Carl Fazio, was in charge of promotions and in the business aspect of the team back then. Jackie York, head of promotions. They were just trying to get people to the ballpark because there was rumors that we were moving to New Orleans, that half the season was going to be played in New Orleans and half the season would be played in Cleveland. And their challenge was to just get people to the ballpark. And that was the focus of why they did that specific promotion. They were trying to save baseball in Cleveland, and obviously it didn't work. It
senior,
worked that we're here in Cleveland. That promotion didn't work.
senior VP with the Cleveland Guardians, now with us, of course. Bob DiBiasio joins us. It's Hey Bobby each week here on WAKR, YouTube channel, Facebook page, WAKR.net. Bobby, as always, we appreciate the time, my friend.
Thank you, Ray. Always a treat. Go Guardians.